Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Mainline's The Meta. I'm your host, Charles Powers, joined today by Tom Marzullo. Tom, I am very excited to have you on the show as one of our very first guest hosts. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm happy to be on. It's a real pleasure. You know, I've been in esports for a long time. I'm still sort of a young guy, right? So I grew up with it. I started as a pro player, then I was a coach for Overwatch. I had a YouTube channel, then I was talent for tournaments, and then I was an observer, and then a producer. I don't know. I've done so much stuff. Wow. It's crazy. It's been a great journey. And now I'm on TV to talk about esports.
Now you're on TV to talk about esports. The come up is real. Okay, so today we have a really, really awesome show for you guys. We're going to be doing our very first tech segment. Check this out. And in today's tech segment, we're going to be taking a look at Astro Gaming's new awesome C40 controller.
That's right. I've actually taken a look at this controller. It's really cool. So I personally like playing fighting games, but I've never been good at using the joystick, the arcade stick that the pro players use. I always use a pad, the controller, and it's so hard to find a good one. This looks like the pad for me for fighting games, so I can't wait to use it.
Yeah, and speaking of fighting games, we took a look at a game called Fantasy Strike at PAX South. It is a really cool game, and we're going to be showing you that later on in the show.
First, though, I think we have our PUBG correspondent, Mustache Dave.
We do.
He's joining us to discuss the inaugural Pro League. He's going to break the league down and give us some insight as to what to look for, teams to watch, all the good stuff.
Yeah, and there's, with the season already kicking off, there are some very interesting storylines there. But before we get into that, we're going to start the show off, as we always do, with our top esports headlines of the week. Here we go. This is The Meta. Start the night with League of Legends news. The LCS started last week, which meant players are back to doing what they do best, throwing shade. With most of the teams making changes to their roster in the offseason, there may be some animosity between players and their old orgs. But in all honesty, though, most of the time, players aren't actually trying to throw shade. They're just answering the questions in an interview and giving their honest answers. In an interview with Esports Heaven, Echo Fox's Hakuho, he was asked about Golden Guardian's bot lane, and his response was, they're definitely on the weaker side. Unless they're playing Draven with a good support matchup, it's hard for them to get priority, and they have poor decision making, whereas Apollo and myself are really confident. Another player, Ruler, was asked in an interview with Invent Global, lastly, if you were to say something to your old partner, CoreJJ, who won in his first game abroad, what would you say? And to me, that seems like a moment to say congratulations, but Ruler went with, I saw CoreJJ dying ridiculously many times in today's match. You gotta try harder. I just kind of feel like, you could have just been like, he was good,
Yeah, oftentimes Koreans are pretty savage when they're criticizing and talking about teammates. It's all about the game and the competition for them. So, if Hyung was dying, he was dying. This is just after 1 week of North American play. I can't wait to see what happens the rest of the season. This is better than afternoon soap operas, honestly.
Better than the soaps, man? You're right. It is. It is.
Another competition not lacking in drama, though, was the Dragon Ball FighterZ World Tour's final. The World Tour was a set of 7 tournaments, with the winner of each receiving a unique Dragon Ball. So cool, so cool. Sadly, one person didn't win them all, so we didn't get to see the Dragon Summon, but the finals favorite, Kazunoko, did manage to collect 4 for himself. Very impressive. The other 3 Dragon Balls were divided between Sonic Fox, Goichi, and Hook Gang God. The finals saw Dragon Ball holder Kazunoko defeat Fenridi and the finals trophy to his substantial collection. Sonic Fox was disappointed, but not deterred. Shortly after his 5th place finish, he tweeted this. Biggest self-reflecting of the tourney was I should play a new team and not tilt from dropping combos. Y'all know me already. Lose one tournament and then obliterate everyone at the next one. Kaz, he's lucky he ain't run into me. I'm so motivated right now. Losing keeps me in check.
You know what? I'm going to translate it for you guys a bit. He said, basically, I didn't play my best, but if the guy that had basically been dominating everyone faced me, I would have beat him. Swag.
In college news, this week, the president of the NCAA, Mark Emmert, made a few statements about collegiate esports. Now, it's worth noting that his first remark, which is the following, We know a lot of the content is hugely misogynistic. Now, that's not wrong and severely needs to be addressed, but then he said the following. We know that some of the content is really violent. We don't particularly embrace games where the objective is to blow your opponent's head off. We know that there are serious concerns about health and wellness around those games. All right, now, first off, most games do not have the objective of blowing your opponent's head off.
Right.
I mean, it's usually just the best way to win.
Yeah.
It's just the consequence of winning, right? The objective. Now, secondly, a lot of people will say that the NCAA already has violence with football, which is true. But more to the point of if 18-year-olds can join the military, why can't they choose to compete in violent games? It's a big controversy over these statements. Now, this is also coming from an institution based on 18-year-olds making choices that will affect the rest of their lives. And finally, health and wellness of teens and young adults is a major concern outside of gaming too.
Yeah, and it's also a major concern for collegiate athletes as well. Now, Mr. Emmert also had concerns about esports and sports betting, but these are topics for a different day. We've talked about the NCAA. We've talked about this on the show a couple of times already. And I'll actually be kind of curious, Tom, to hear what you think. Like, what's your take on this whole, esports are not going to be a part of collegiate sports, collegiate athletics from the NCAA. What's your take on that?
It's something that's really difficult to get into because you have the NCAA has a certain culture. It's obviously very different from the culture that has kind of grown up by itself in gaming. Sports has always been very structured. The reason is because to play sports, you need to be in a structure. You can't just go play football by yourself. You can play League of Legends by yourself. You can go and play a fighting game online by yourself. It's a very different concept that online gaming has brought to the table. So it's going to be interesting seeing how the NCAA and colleges try to take what's really just this Wild West type of thing where anyone can go and become a pro player by their individual merit and try to form it into a structure. It'll be something that I think everyone's going to be looking at over the next couple of years.
Very valid. And, I also think that the NCAA is also going to have to address a couple of things because as the current structure stands, no player is going to want to forfeit making however much money they can make outside of the NCAA if the current structure stands. So that is going to be interesting. Very, very, very interesting comments you had. When we come back, Mustache Dave reports on the NPL and gets you caught up on everything you need to know before the start of the inaugural season. Don't go anywhere. The Meta will be right back.